welcome to my home and my garden. When I'm not cutting glass, I'm out here enjoying this peaceful little sanctuary where I love to sit, sip coffee, listen to the birds and the bees, and just enjoy being outside. So when I'm not cutting glass, this is where I like to hang out. But when I am cutting glass, I like to make projects that reflect my interests, which are gardening. So I made this beautiful grape tulip here. I'm going to show you how to make it today. This tulip and this beautiful graceful leaf that holds it in place. So let's get started. This project is made with 2 layers of glass. I'm going to begin by cutting a flower shape out of clear glass. Here I'm using the pattern as a guide. I try to cut as closely to the pattern as possible to minimize the amount of grinding that might be needed. When cutting intricate shapes like this, I turn the pattern and the paper and the glass to make it more convenient for me to cut the pieces. So I want to have nice, consistent pressure on my score when I'm applying the glass cutter to the surface of the glass. Now I'm taking my running pliers and removing the excess material around the flower shape. Running pliers work well for removing large pieces of glass. These grazing pliers are better when I'm removing smaller slivers and tiny pieces with intricate curves. If I have a stubborn piece, one that doesn't want to be removed from the main glass, I go ahead and add another score line to relieve some pressure and make it easier to remove that excess glass. The whole point is to get the shape that you want, not to break the base piece. Now I'm using a Sharpie to detail the intricate interior cuts that I'm going to make with a saw. Now I'm going to take some chapstick and go over the Sharpie lines so that when I work with the saw, which has water, that water won't wash those lines away. Now I'm going to cut out the clear base for the leaf. Here I'm using my cutter to run right along that line, and I'm going to detail this piece to be as closely in shape to that pattern as possible. Whenever possible, I use my running pliers because they give me a more reliable break. So I'll use that for the bulky pieces around the perimeter. Now I'll use my grazing pliers to peel out those interior curves. Now I'm going to cut up the paper, and because I'm going to cut the leaf pattern again, but this time out of opaque glass. I can't see through this glass, so rather than cut over the glass, I'm going to cut the paper, glue it to the glass, and then cut around it. You get a really nice accurate shape using this method. I'm using the cutter along the paper, getting as close as possible without running into the paper. I'm going to detail that top edge there and then detail this inside curve. I'm going to go ahead and add another couple of scores so that will come out more reliably. Now I'll take my running pliers and remove the pattern piece from the larger sheet, and then remove the excess glass and peel that off nicely. And then we'll take the grazing pliers and we'll go in and remove those interior curves. Look how nicely those just peel right out. The flower petals will be made out of a pretty purple glass. So I'm cutting the different shapes. So here I'm using a pattern because the glass is very dark and I can't really see the paper through the glass. So I've cut up the paper. I'm just using my cutter, going around the paper as close as possible, and then removing the excess glass with my grazing pliers. Grinding the glass gives the edge a smoother finish, removes any sharp pieces, and also gives it a finer shape. So here I'm grinding the base piece of glass to give it a nice shape. Now in order to get those deep inside curves, I'm going to use this band saw and cut in these deep little triangular shapes. Now I'm going to grind the flower petals because I want a really nice shape and a nice fit on those pieces, as well as the leaf. I'm going to grind that, give it a nice shape, and make sure that I don't have any bumps, that has, it's not sharp, and it'll give me nice contours. Now I'm going to take the saw and cut those little details out of the leaf. I really love these little details. They add a nice kind of three-dimensional quality, visual quality to the overall finished project. So when you're using a saw, you just want to go slow and steady and take your time. And keep in mind that the saw is just removing material. It's like a different way of grinding. And look how fun these little details are. I'm going to come back in and connect the dots here. And there we go, we've got a nice notch in the leaf. Look how pretty that is. Now we're going to assemble the cut pieces on top of the clear base. I like to use fuser's glue with a toothpick, apply the tiniest amount possible, and then glue those pieces on top of the clear base so they don't shift or move when I transport this to the kiln. Notice I'm using the smallest amount of glue possible. The smallest amount will burn off without leaving any residue and still gives you a nice connection. Now I'm taking some blue opal frit, using a spoon and applying it to the ends of the leaves or the petals to give them a nice additional detail. I decided that transparent green frit would be a nice accent for this leaf. So here I'm adding that frit into those crevices, and then I'm taking a paintbrush and removing the excess material. This blue frit is going to add another dimension. Now I'm going to fire the pieces to a full fuse temperature. And here they are coming out of the kiln. Look at that beautiful firing. Got beautiful edges, nice shape, nice detail there. It's very subtle, but still adds a little something. That blue frit adds a little something to those flower petals. And then the leaf, I love the blue detail down the center. It gives a nice contrast. Nice extra detail there. Now I'm going to set up for the slump. Now this is the really fun part. Here I'm going to take a wavy mold and then a small bowl mold and a small stainless steel cup mold and use them all in combination. Here I'm going to take that leaf and put it on diagonally. That's what gives us the really cool shape of this project. And then I'm going to take the flower and position it over that stainless steel floral former. And then we're going to close the kiln and fire these to a slumping temperature. What makes this piece so awesome and unique is simply the way we're using molds that we already have on hand in new and different ways. What makes this flower different than other floral former pieces is that the flower itself, when it went in, was in a flower petal shape, and that gives it this beautiful little contours around the edge and that graceful kind of floral look around the top that's very freeform and organic. And the leaf being diagonally on that stainless steel mold gives us a totally different profile than we would have had if we had put that leaf on there straight. So keep in mind, you can use your same old molds in different ways to get new and exciting shapes. Sometimes it's the simplest applications that make the most dramatic effects. I hope you enjoyed learning how to make this beautiful tulip. You can learn how to make this project and a bunch of others in my new video, Creative Shapes. Until next time, happy fusing!